Hi, everyone. Welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to subscribe before we jump into this discussion and ring that little bell and share this live stream out because I've got my all-star panel. I've got Rosemary Dewar, writer for Athens Now, and you know her on the Twitter as the Sleepy Red Hole. I've got Ezra Celeste. Both of you, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jake.
So, we all three decided to break with the critics completely, and we all saw Death Wish. Da, da, da. It's a just a little brief backstory. It's a remake of a film starring Charles Bronson. It was kind of a film. He was kind of starting to lose popularity when they made this film, Charles Bronson. And then this film shoved him back into the spotlight. It was very violent. It was one of the first films, I believe, to actually show a rape scene. One of the very first. Now, the remake that came out this year. Is supposed to come out in November, but it came out earlier this month. They delayed it because of the Las Vegas shooting. It stars Bruce Willis and it's directed by Eli Roth, who is primarily known for horror films. He did The Green Inferno, which is about cannibals, and in Hostel, which is about a European vacation hotel that tortures American tourists because we all hate Americans. So Eli Roth really changed it, and it was kind of funny. We were when we did our special with Roaming Millennial. Of course, I had my all-star panel. Had to have them for that. We off air, we started talking about how we're excited about Death Wish, and so then I was like, "Hey, let's have we all three saw it. Let's have an impromptu panel about that." So we're gonna jump right into it. Ezra, I'm gonna start with you. Kind of give me your before you saw it, what were you kind of expecting from the film?
I was expecting it to be a lot more like the original. With Charles Bronson, and it deviated away from that. I also didn't expect to see that many people in the theater. It was actually packed whenever I went. So
that's pretty cool. And Rosemary, going in now. Oh, but before I go to Rosemary, Ezra, is this a movie you usually go to see? Like, do you like kind of those brutal action films? Is that it? Is that your taste, or one of your tastes?
I kind of thought it was going to be more like the revenge type of film, so like Man on Fire.
Oh, okay.
I was kind of hoping for that type of film where you latch on to the Denzel Washington character and you're with him until the very end. I mean, you kind of don't care that he's killing all these people in Man on Fire because they're so horrible and you're so attached to his character. So that's what I was expecting a lot from in Death Wish. Did not quite get that, but I was hoping for that.
Right. And Rosemary, what you going into this film, what were you kind of expecting from it? Were you expecting it to be, Shape of Water good, or were you just kind of like, oh, I just want to see it because people are kind of talking about it, that kind of thing?
Well, when I went to go see, I mean, Bruce Willis, when you see some of his other action films, I kind of expected some of the same thing, where his character is a little on the dry side, not very emotional, not well, not that good at expression. Which the beginning of the film was very much like that. I kind of felt like it was lagging just a little bit. But seeing other actors like Elizabeth Shue, which she only does like one project a year, type thing, and then she was a character for a while on on like a criminal show. One of the other actors, what was his name? Vincent D. Oh, I can't remember how to say his last name.
Oh, the guy who played the brother.
Yeah, the guy who played the brother. He always puts forth a really good performance. So it's like I was excited to see him. So I knew that there was going to be some good dialogue, but I was surprised towards the end of the film, definitely.
For me, I went into it kind of a combination of both of what y'all were saying. I've never seen an Eli Roth film, so everything I know about him, I just know from reading about him. So I'm not really sure about his movie style. But I was kind of expecting just kind of an ordinary action flick, and I didn't think it would be as good as, like Ezra was saying, kind of a revenge man on fire type film. But I was expecting it to be good because I get accused of this all the time. I like candy films. It's just I was raised on action films that are just exist to exist and nothing more than for you to go, that's awesome. And so I was kind of going in expecting that, but it kind of surprised me a little bit because it did have some deep stuff. Now, before we go any further, there will be spoilers most likely going forward. So I'm just, anyone who's watching live or if you rewatch this later, there most likely will be spoilers. We're going to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into this film. We're going to talk about the plot. We're going to talk about the controversy that was really no controversy. And we're going to, we are going to talk about kind of the themes of the film. So just a spoiler alert before we go any further. I probably should have done that at the beginning, but I knew we wouldn't give anything away with what are you expecting from the film. So just spoiler alert, you've been warned. So to my next question, I kind of feel like Bruce Willis has a lot of range, but I feel like recently he kind of plays the same roles over and over again. Like to me, in this film he played a character. The character's name was Paul Kersey, but to me, he after the first act of the film, he kind of became Frank Moses from Red. You know. I don't think he went full John McClane, but definitely I felt that transition to that. But I won't name who, but I have a couple of female relatives who will go see Bruce Willis in anything. It doesn't matter. Bruce Willis could be in a commercial for a bank, and they will record it. So. I almost feel sexist asking that. Rosemary, Ezra, did y'all feel that way going into this? You're like, oh, Bruce Willis, he's back in action.
No, goodness, no. Honestly, the only reason I saw Armageddon, and this is probably, this is shameful, but I saw it because I loved Ben Affleck. So, yeah, there's no anything like that towards Bruce Willis.
What about you, Rosemary?
It's like he would be like that really hot uncle or something like that. It's definitely one of those guys you'd want to go shooting with sometime, like Keanu Reeves or something like that. Definitely. Okay,
makes sense. All right, I just thought I'd throw that in there to get clicks, but anyway. So we're back to the movie itself. I kind of felt like the story is Paul Kersey. He's a family man who does everything right. Burglars break in, they murder his wife, put his daughter in a coma, and so he sets out for revenge. And one thing I appreciated about this film that I liked the last two Die Hard movies. I just kind of think of them as separate from the first three. But what I liked about it was the movie was a little bit more realistic and kind of its action. So he's taking the trains, you know, he doesn't have like the souped up car, you know, and, you know, that's because it seems to me like even like just kind of muted action films, you have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit. And I didn't really feel that with this movie. I felt like it had definitely a more, of course you had to a little bit, obviously, but to me, it felt like it had more of a realistic view of someone who just gets pushed to that edge. Rosemary, what do you think about that?
Well, even the way he chose to, the director decided to use guns and expressing like someone who's a brand new shooter is not very well equipped on how to hold it and what kind of happens with it. And some of the psychology that he was dealing with it during the movie, I think was very realistic. And I think that made it very authentic to what the storyline was supposed to be. And I appreciate that about the film.
And Ezra, what do you think? Do you feel like it was kind of brought a kind of a gritty realism to the film? To the film's plot, I guess.
I was on the fence about this because it does bring in a lot of realistic tones, especially set for now. Like he learns how to shoot a gun on YouTube. I do everything through YouTube. I fix my dishwasher on YouTube or from a YouTube channel. So I that was very realistic. It's set in present time Chicago with all the violence happening now. So that's the backdrop of everything. I thought that was very realistic. The problems I had with it was the fact that it wasn't very realistic as far as like, oh, he gets the gun because he kicks it underneath the surgery table and no one else sees it.
That's true.
That was a little far-fetched. And then things just kind of happen to fall into his lap a lot. Like he's just walking by and then there's a car. I guess it's Chicago, so maybe. But it was. I'm on the fence, like I said. I love that it was set in present time, and there's a lot of things people can relate to it. And then also the radio hosts that are in the backdrop, like giving, you know, they're like, well, no, we're not for this vigilante, and then there's some that are for this vigilante, and so setting it in that kind of talk show aspect of a background was very realistic. But like I said, some of the action stuff was kind of it just happened to fall in his lap so well.
Now, we've been talking about Bruce Willis a lot because one of the things that is kind of unique to this film is recently it feels like every character, including the janitor, has to have a storyline. And I really liked one thing I appreciated about this film is it's one of those films, like it felt like it's driven by one character. And I really liked that. I thought that was a good artistic approach to it. And oh man, I'm starting to sound, man, Mackle Knowles would be so proud of me for saying that. But I honestly felt that. I thought, man, this is weird a little bit, because even if you watch Black Panther, it's driven by the main character, T'Challa, but then it's also driven by Killmonger, the villain. And this one, the villain, you don't really, spoiler, you don't really see the villain except in the very beginning and at the climax. I hear an alarm. I hear an alarm going off.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. But but I do want to give the support cast a little bit, because I did think Vincent, what's his name? I did think he was good as playing Bruce Willis's brother. He's a pretty good actor. I've seen him in a couple other things. I saw him in a TV show where he was the villain for a whole season. And so it was kind of hard for me to get him to that point where he's like, oh, he's actually a good guy in this movie. So does anyone else want to chime in on that, what they thought about it focusing in on one specific character as opposed to trying to build from several? I'll start with you, Rosemary. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, even seeing him originally from stuff like The Cell, this is definitely something quite different. Although he did a lot of Law and Order, that was really cool. So it kind of gives him already a back, or at least a feeling for that type of character.
Mm-hmm.
But
Still a little bit of a
I've
ring.
enjoyed him a lot with his stuff. But yeah.
What about you? Ezra? Did you have a favorite sub character or not?
He was my favorite. I liked the little kind of comedy that he brought into it, and then I liked they sort of touched on where he was sort of the suspect for a little bit. I wish they had kind of gone more into that, but I did like his character. I think that for the movie to work, it has to be centered around Paul and what he went through and what he's going through. So I think that the 70s movie does a better job of that, but I'm glad that they kept it that way in this movie.
Now, I have not seen the original one. Have either of you seen it? I know, Ezra.
Yes.
You have you, Rosemary? Okay.
I have seen the original.
So I'll start with you, Ezra. What did you like better about this one, and what did you like better for the old one?
So this one is a lot happier, and I know you said you mentioned that it was kind of an artistic thing. I think that the 70s one was more artistic. This one I feel was like the good feel movie where, I mean, obviously not for a lot of people, but when you're in Texas, it's the good feel movie because you're going, yes, the bad guys are going to get it. And he's killing the bad guys. And, you know, he kills the drug dealer, the ice cream man, just because the ice cream man had hurt this kid. And so you kind of feel that and you're like, yes, okay, you're really happy whenever he goes and offs this drug dealer. I was happy, I know. But the 70s film it's actually a lot sadder because he never catches the bad guys. He kind of has this internal drama, and that's what pushes him, because not only was his wife killed, his daughter was brutally raped, and the daughter is not okay at the end of the film. This ending was like, got the bad guys, happy ending, girl going to college, woo, everything's good. Whereas the first one, nothing is good. And he kind of has to keep killing because it's the only thing that kind of keeps him alive.
And same to you, Rosemary. What did you like better about this film, and what did you like better about the original?
I'd say I do think the flow of it was a little bit tighter than the original. My dad is a huge fan of the originals, and I went to see this one with him. And but it's again, it is
right? There's 4 in the original series.
4 in the original, yeah. It's like there could have been Death Wish 12 if it kept going, really.
Well, they wanted to do a 5th one, but he died.
Yeah. And I do think it is happier. I think some of the gruesomeness is left for some of the actual comeuppance that the guys have to deal with when they come into contact with Mr. Kersey. But it's the interesting part is that it still kind of leaves it open for the next one. The only odd thing is that in the original, there's usually 1 or 2 gang members that he doesn't catch that end up hurting the daughter again. So I don't know if the people that the gangsters that he's dealing with at this point are going to be ones that are going to mess with his daughter while his daughter goes to college in New York. And most likely he'll be moving to the New York area after being in Chicago forever. So we'll see what happens with that. But it does leave it open for a sequel for sure.
What now? Have either of you seen another Eli Roth film by any chance? This is my first. What have you seen, Ezra?
I saw Hostel.
Yeah. And that's what you saw too, Rosemary? Okay.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is my first Eli Roth film. I'm not a horror person. That's just not my genre. I'm a good Christian person. No, I'm just kidding. Both Ezra and Rosemary are very good Christian people. Trust me, YouTube. But no, I'm just saying it's just not my genre. I like more suspense, which is why I kind of like this one. There are some gruesome scenes in this one, but I felt like it was, from what I've even seen from the Red Band trailers of the Green Inferno, it seemed like he scaled back the gruesomeness and kept it to just like a couple of scenes. I'm going to ask, is it just Hostel, or have y'all seen some of his other films?
Hostel's the only one I remember.
Hostel.
Okay. So neither of you have seen the Green Inferno?
No.
Okay. So then, was this better than Hostel?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Very much so.
Now I did enjoy it. I did like it, but I'm going to ask y'all if y'all agree with this statement. I didn't feel like it brought anything new to the revenge action thriller. I just thought that it was just another good one, but I didn't feel like it brought anything to that new to the genre. Which it's a remake. You don't really, like the True Grit remake with Jeff Bridges. Don't get me started on that. The John Wayne one was the best, clearly. But we'll start with you, Rosemary. What did you think? Did you think that as a revenge action flick, do you think that it stands out, or do you think eventually we're just going to talk about it because of the controversy, which we'll cover next?
Well, I think It's not much different than having a maskless Batman or a fully seen Punisher type thing. There were some elements that we probably will talk about here in a minute that I think was very much under the radar, that people don't see outright, but I think was very conservative in the way that they chose to do it.
And what about you, Ezra?
I don't think that it brought anything really new to the genre. Like I said, it's not a man on fire type of film, but I do like the underlying message that it brings, which is you can't rely on anyone else except yourself to protect yourself and your family.
Yeah, and I agree with that. This is what these fine ladies or Z's, whatever they are, have been waiting for the whole time. I just say that because we triggered a lot. This film triggered a lot of people. It's in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's about a white guy who gets a gun and starts shooting not just white gangsters. He kills Mexican and black gangsters as well. And it's angering so many people. I actually was Christian Toto, who's probably my favorite movie reviewer. He said this film is not woke, and he is 100% right about that. And I felt the same way. This film could have been an NRA commercial. I mean, it really could have been. To me, the only thing it kind of fell back into leftism was it did kind of mock having faith or being a person of faith very subtly, but it was still kind of there. But otherwise, like, it's a guy who's a strong father. The wife, is, I don't think she's necessarily a stay-at-home mom, but her daughter's going off to school. So now she's going back to school to get her doctorate. They're very well-knit family. The daughter is respectful to her parents and doesn't hashtag anything during the movie. So I thought that was, and it triggered a lot of people because it kind of brings those classic values. Am I, Ezra, I'll start with you. Am I overstating it?
No, not at all. That's exactly what it does. And which is why I think that in Texas, whenever I went to see it, people were cheering. I mean, audibly cheering whenever something was, he got back at the gang members and stuff.
What about Rosemary? Do you think I'm overstating it?
No, not at all. I get some of the things I think probably went unnoticed by a lot of people is like the daughter's friend is reading like Milton Freeman to her while she's in a coma, and the dad is reading C.S. Lewis while she's in a coma, and it's like even when it's dealing with his experience with guns, it outright shows you what an actual loophole is in stealing it from a criminal, and then actually shows you what the legal steps are for actually getting a gun in a high gun control area with still a 72-hour wait period before you get one. So it's I think the whole thing was really well thought, and even subliminally I think it was done well.
And that's one thing too. It's like because one of the big complaints about Christian films, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, is that it's so in your face, the message of the film. And I kind of feel like this one, like, in a way, he showed conservatives and Christians how to do the film. I mean, everything was done kind of, there was a couple of things that were in your face, like the Milton Friedman, like they stated, I'm reading her Milton Friedman. But most everything was kind of done more subliminally. There we go. I was hoping. But I thought one thing I thought was funny is the whole thing, where he gets this idea of the police can't help you, or they want to help you, but they're so overwhelmed. A man's got to defend his own family, is from Texas, because that's where his wife is from. He goes to Texas, and his father-in-law or his tells him, and it was kind of funny because like he opens fire on he watches his father-in-law open fire with his rifle. And to scare poachers off his land, and
which had a lot of people cheering in the Texas theater, by the way. Don't mess with Texas. It was wonderful.
Well, I know everyone thinks, me being from Texas, everyone thinks that, oh, Texans just go out and blow away anything that moves. But no, Texans hate poachers. And most of the time, poachers are from out of states. They're not Texans who are doing the poaching. So just throwing that in there. But now, y'all have seen Hostel. Did Hostel have any kind of these themes in it that could be considered conservative? I'll let one of you jump in here.
No, other than usually seeing gangsters being gangsters, I don't see any other parallel than other than gruesomeness and just bad guys being bad. I don't see any other parallel there.
Now, what about you, Ezra?
At all. And even the gruesomeness was pulled back so much. I think the worst gruesome part was when he cuts open the guy's and he's pouring breaker fluid into his nerve. Mm-hmm. But that's nothing compared to what you see in Hostel. And honestly, I don't even remember any underlying themes in Hostel besides don't go touring somewhere if you're an American or you're going to get murdered. So yeah. That's what I got from that film, which, obviously isn't true. You can go somewhere and not be murdered, but that's what that film felt like.
Well, that's interesting. And because I've never, like I said, I don't know anything about Eli Roth, but maybe he's learning, because it did really well at the box office. I mean, I don't think it broke any records, but it did do well in the box office. And so, but a man like Eli Roth, he's like Michael Bay. Michael Bay knows his movies are going to make money, and so he's not worried about the Academy Award. And I'm sure, judging from this film, neither is Eli Roth. And so maybe Eli Roth is going, hey, there's a whole untapped portion of the country that we haven't. I'm trying to say, I don't think, because there's some people worried, oh, Eli Roth is going to be the next Cecil B. DeMille. I doubt that, seriously. But I think he's looking at it from a monetary perspective. He's going, hey, there's this portion of the population in America that likes these kinds of films, and I can make money if I give them what they want. For better or for worse, I think that's a good motivation, because we're conservatives. After all, we're capitalists. We want to make money. So,
exactly.
but do y'all disagree? Did y'all see maybe this is well, I don't mean do y'all disagree with that. I mean, do you think maybe this is part of a sea change we're gonna see in Hollywood? I'll start with you, Ezra.
I'm hoping that it does that because of how much backlash he's getting for the film, and people are going, "Don't go see it," because it's especially during this time, everyone's going, this is the absolute wrong time to make this film and stuff. I'm hoping that they don't kind of focus in on that instead of focusing in on, hey, look, it actually made some money for us. But you can never be sure with Hollywood.
That's true.
They might go with the message and hate the fact that it made any money. I don't know.
What about you, Rosemary?
As kind of like what we discussed in our last panel, for me, I feel like there is a definite market change. Netflix has changed TV, and I think YouTube has changed even the ability for individual makers to start making their own content. And I think that directors that have been around a while and haven't been able to make the type of movies that they want to, I think that they're going to start creating their own things that they know their specific audience and their own fan base want from them. And I don't think they're necessarily going to be concerned with making $1 million on an opening weekend. I'm pretty positive they'd be happy with something that's making 40 or 50. And I do think that is going to be a market shift. Definitely.
I remember there was an interview. The guy who did Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. I haven't seen that film. I can't remember. I did see one of his films, but it's escaping me. But that director, he made because he only does like one film every 2 or 3 years. He doesn't do them that often, and someone asked him why, and he said, because Hollywood doesn't like the kind of films that I do. I do middle range budget films. They don't cost that much to make. And I just try to go with what I've got and make a good film. And I think that now, though, that opportunity has come. So I remember, I think it was Steven Soderbergh last year did a movie that people were calling the hillbilly Italian Job. Logan Lucky, I think it was, about these hillbillies.
I love that movie.
Oh yeah, there you go, exactly. But it's about these hillbillies who want to rob the Daytona 500, right? I think that's the plot of it. So I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it really bad, but
do it. It's on Amazon. So good.
Oh, there you go. But it's so crazy that filmmakers are, and Steven Soderbergh, that was surprising that he put his name on a film like that, because not because I think he's not because I think anything bad about him, but it just seems like the themes of some of his other movies don't necessarily go that route. And but I think that's kind of cool that and that filmmakers are starting to wake up with that, because I think it was God's Not Dead 3 is getting backing from a secular company. And what I think is funny too is was it that movie with Angela Johnson and the guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Resurrection of Gavin Stone. WWE Films backed that movie. Talk about strange. And all I mean by that, I'm not trying to pitch to Christian movies, but I'm just saying that I feel like independent filmmakers or filmmakers who want to stay independent are realizing, hey, all these big budget films are losing money, so I can make cash in a smaller market. But sorry, that was a little bit of a soapbox. But just back to Death Wish, because it caused such a stir, but still made money. And like Ezra was saying, there's audible cheers in theater. There wasn't where I went. People are just kind of going, yeah, good film, but no audible applause. But do you think that? As far as we talked about its impact as just a genre film, but its impact politically, because Eli Roth, though he's only made a few films, he's still kind of a big name director. Do you think that politically in Hollywood, and Rosemary, I'll start with you, do you think that will help move it even more, that someone with as big a name as Roth will that help move Hollywood a little bit more? As far as politics.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, even something that happened in the film where Bruce Willis's character basically pulls a Hillary Clinton on a hard drive and 2 cell phones. I don't know if that was meant to be a direct hit or not, but short of putting it in a bucket of Drano for an hour, I think not necessarily political, but conservative narratives are going to become more and more constant. And I think that's, I mean, again, it's a market shift. I think that's good for conservatives, good for libertarians. And it's like, if we get good movies that we actually like out of it, then I'm all for it. Definitely.
All right. Final question. What is going to be the sequel's title? Because Eli Roth, he loves sequels. He did Hostel 1 and 2. He's currently in talks to do a sequel to The Green Inferno. So we know there's going to be a sequel. I'm going to vote Death Wish Revenge. Ezra, what's your guess?
Death Wish Revenge of the Daughter. I want the daughter to come back and start killing people.
Yeah, I got a whole Twitter debate with Faith Moore about Mulan regarding that very topic. So, Rosemary, what's your sequel title guess?
Maybe Death Wish: The Return.
The Return. I like that. It's ominous. Because what is returning to? Is life as a doctor or a killer? We'll see. But all right. So, Rosemary, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at RLY and ND1.
Ezra, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at The Sleepy Rebel.
And of course, you can find me on Twitter at RealJacobAiry. You can find me on Instagram, real.jacob.airy. My blog is jacobairy.blog. You can find my political writings at thedailywire.com. Big announcement. I am actually, StudioJake is going to be shifting from Saturday to Sunday starting in April. So not a big weekend shift, but we'll probably still do specials like this, like a Friday night live show, which I'll just, after it's live, I'll delay it and put it back in. But Ezra and Rosemary, I want to thank you both so much. You two are my all-star panel. And as always, it's so much fun to have them on. Don't worry, you'll be seeing some of them. Will every once in a while, we'll do a solo episode with just Rosemary and just Ezra. But the two of them, they've been my most consistent guests. And so you'll be seeing them a lot more often, especially even with the shift to Sunday, because we're all church-going folk. We'll work something out where maybe we can do pre-records and whatnot. So don't forget to subscribe here at StudioJake. Be sure to ring that bell because let's be honest, Facebook and YouTube is going to try to bury this film because we talked about Death Wish. So we'll see you next time here at StudioJake. Ladies, thank you again.
Thank you.